Welcome to Descartes Module 4. We've just learnt that Descartes thinks that he exists with his famous statement, cogito ergo sum. Now he's actually going to come to a second conclusion about himself that he believes that he knows for sure.
Yeah.
What is that?
And so basically what this conclusion is about, this second conclusion, is about figuring out, well, if I exist, what exactly is that I? And he wants us to be careful about that. He doesn't want us to make any assumptions. He wants to go through his kind of reasoning process to come to a firm conclusion about what the I is.
So he doesn't want to make any assumptions about what he is.
Yeah.
So he's going to go through this process of figuring out what he really is. And how he's going to do that is he's going to go back and meditate. He just loves meditating. He's going to meditate, which means think deeply, about what he originally believed himself to be. So what did before he started going through this process of radical doubt, what did he think he was?
A human being.
Yeah, a human being with a body and some other stuff. We'll go into it on the next slide. So after he's got that picture in his mind of what he originally thought he was, he's then going to subtract anything capable of being weakened. So if there's anything that he can doubt about what he is, he's going to assume that he's not that. He's going to subtract that from the picture, take it away. And then hopefully what he's left with at the end, he can know for sure about himself.
Okay, so he says that there's a couple of things he originally thought himself to be. Firstly, he thought himself to have what he would call a body. So he had face, hands, arms, and some limbs. Okay? And his next thought was that I'm nourished, that I move, and that I engage in sense perception and thinking. So he sees things, he feels things, and all of that. And this is what he calls the soul. Now, this is quite a weird concept of the soul, and it's going to be very different to the one that we encounter in our third text, Plato's text. So we're just going to put a pin in it, though. So we just need to remember this is what Descartes thinks the soul is, and that's that. It's the nourishment of the body. It's the body moving about and engaging with its senses and its thinking, and all of that is the soul.
So that's what Descartes originally believed himself to be. He had a body and a soul, or so he thought. But now he's going to go through and see what he needs to subtract from that equation. So he's told himself that there's this malicious deceiver who's tricking him, and the demon could easily be tricking him about his body. The demon could be making him feel like he has a body when actually he doesn't. So he can't know for sure that he has a body. So subtracted. He's subtracted the body from his picture of what he is. Okay, no body. So what is he? Well, what next? What about these things that he's talked about in the soul? The first things he thinks we have are nutrition. So kind of, I don't know, somehow nourishing yourself, maybe with food or something like that. And movement, moving around. But he says, well, without a body, those things can't happen. We can't nourish ourselves without a body. We can't move without a body. So I don't have either of those things. Movement and nutrition. What about sense perception? That's another thing that he thought we had in the soul. But surely we can't engage in sense perception without a body because, you know, we use our eyes, our skin, our nose, all of what we use for the senses actually comes from the body. So if a demon's deceiving us about having a body, then we don't have sense perception. So subtracted. Okay, so what about this very last thing? He thought that thinking was also part of the soul. And he's just proven when he did I think, therefore I am, he's actually gone through a process of proving that he's having thoughts. And so Descartes thinks this is the one thing that cannot be separated from him. He knows that he's having thoughts. So this is the one thing that he does not subtract from the picture of himself. So the only thing that Descartes knows about himself, well, he knows that he exists and he knows that he is thinking. And he says he is a thinking thing, or a thing that thinks. So the one thing he knows. And he says, like, I think this is interesting. It could be that were I totally to cease from thinking, I should totally cease to exist. In other words, if I stop thinking, I might die. Because he doesn't know anything else about himself apart from the fact that he thinks. So maybe if he stops thinking, there'll be nothing left of him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So strictly, he's only a thing that thinks. In other words, he is a mind, or he is intelligence, or intellect, or reason. That's all he could literally just be a mind that is thinking. So I think this is interesting, and it's worth just dwelling on this for a sec, because, I wanted to ask you, Tim.
Yes.
If Descartes is saying he's just a mind, then what do you think he likes better, empirical propositions or rational propositions?
Rational, because it's all about using your thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And he's obviously just gone through this process of proving we can't trust the senses, but we can trust that we are thinking.
Yeah.
So he would believe that rational propositions are a lot more trustworthy than empirical propositions.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting because think back to our buddy Armstrong.
Armstrong.
Yeah. What did he trust most?
Like the physiochemical, the senses.
Yes, he actually didn't really trust that we have a mind. All he trusted was that we have a body.
And we have science.